right, everybody, welcome. It is good to have you joining us today for this 4 o'clock Saturday U.S. Pacific time, 7 o'clock Eastern time, different times around the world, opportunity to learn a little bit through the Global Ed Tech Academy. So I hope you are in for a few ideas and ready to share your thoughts in the chat as we go as well. So with that, what I would like to do is let you know first that we're recording. So this is a recorded presentation. These are prepped and added to the Global Ed Tech Academy pages so that you can see these in the future. There have been a lot of great presentations this summer. I hope you will take a look at the many different presenters they've had join in as a part of this. So with that, I'd like to start this. This is the fun and cool of getting better even during a pandemic. So the whole idea is that we can get much better as teachers if we just know how to think about it. And I will be sharing some ideas with you on that front as we go. You'll see a lot of different images in my session. That's because I'm much more into images than text in terms of the kinds of things that I put in front of an audience. So this is about as much text as you'll see on any of my slides, generally speaking. But I also make sure that the images that I'm using are ones that are legally available through Creative Commons licensing or through similar means, such as the kinds of things that are available on Unsplash and Pexels and great sites like that. So I want to start by saying that the Global Ed Tech Academy is a joint effort through Microsoft EDU and Q, and I'm excited for the chance to be a part of it. So thanks out to them for the chance to make a few presentations along the way. My next one is actually on Monday morning on starting class strong, whether online or in person. I hope you'll catch that. And thank you for joining in. I hope that the ideas that you are getting through this as a function of watching it or through watching the recording will be something that will enrich the experience that you have in the coming months. So with that, let me also say that I will give away a Starbucks card to someone who signs up for my newsletter. That's one of those things that I just think is more fun to do than not to do. So feel free to sign up at nextvista.org/newsletter, nextvista.org/newsletter. I'll put that up again at the end of the presentation. So if you're scrambling at the moment, nextvista.org/newsletter. You'll get it again a little later. So my name is Rushton Hurley. I am a former high school teacher, a former principal of a K-12 school, and a principal of an online high school. And now I run a little nonprofit called Next Vista for Learning. And nextvista.org is an online library of videos by and for teachers and students everywhere, free to use, free to contribute to, free to download from, all for a student audience, all screen content, my own little attempt to save the universe from ignorance, one creative video at a time. All right, so I hope that's something that you'll take a look at as you go forward as well. So in talking about the idea of getting better during a pandemic, we have to kind of look at the idea of changes, right? So what is it that has changed over the last 6 months? And you might say, everything has changed. Well, lots has changed, but there are certainly things that have not changed. So we're going to be looking specifically at what kinds of things have changed, what kinds of things have not. Now, I would start by looking at some of the things that have not changed. So for example, every single teacher wants to do well, every last one. They want to show up at school, they want to show up in the Zoom room, on the Teams meeting, whatever it may be, and say things and give insights that allow kids to stop and say, yeah, ooh, wow, and to see possibilities for their future that they hadn't seen before. Additionally, every single team member on your campus and in your school system has a role to play in helping kids learn to get more and more confident about their academic possibilities. It's not just a function of what teachers do. There are the people behind the front desk and the people serving the food and the people running the buses, like when we meet in person and things like this, and all of those people play a role. And so knowing that you can tap into the talents of other members of the team is something that hasn't changed at all, even if how we do it and when has. Finally, every child shows up to learning, shows up to the lessons wanting to be amazed and to find it cool. I mean, no one, given the choice between this can be really cool or it can be kind of deadly boring, which would you prefer? No one's going to choose the latter. They always want something that's really interesting. They want to walk away from a lesson excited about something new. That has not changed either. And how we go about trying to get them in a space where they're thinking about this may be something that we have to approach a little differently. However, little things about what we do allow us to get better at this all the time. So as we go forward, we'll look at this in a number of different ways. I want to start by running you through a little activity, and that activity is to look at a group of pictures and see if you can identify a common thread. So I'm going to show you these 5 pictures, and each one's going to be on the screen for about 5 seconds. And at the end of it, I want you to just think, okay, well, what is a common thread that I see as a function of these different images? You can toss these into the chat as you go, totally fine. But just whatever comes to mind. There are no wrong answers with this, right? So here is the first image. Second. Third. The fourth. The fifth. All right. In the chat, toss like your ideas. Like what kind of things came to mind? Jackie, hey, welcome, Jackie. She writes joy, like that. That's what she sees in these different pictures. And as you look at these pictures, different kind of things may come to mind for you. So what are some of those pieces? What are some of the things that for you, like, all of those pictures for me speak to X or Y or Z. Often when I present on things like this, they talk about things like light and energy and the idea of looking at the world in new ways. You may not have seen anything. Angie says, I didn't see any connections. That's all right. Totally fine. Totally fine. In just a moment, I'm going to tell you what the connection was for me in choosing these particular images. So you've got a sense of, okay, well, that was what was in his head when he went through them. And the answer to that is that I chose them all because they are cool. Now, you might find that profoundly disappointing, right? You're kind of like, what? I expected something far more interesting. Like, you got to be kidding. Cool? Well, actually, I think as we go back through them and begin to think about these images again, you might decide, okay, well, maybe there's some value here, and I'll see if I can make that case to you. So that first picture, isn't it cool when a kid walks in front of your class and gives some ideas about some different things and does so with a kind of confidence that is there because you have helped that kid become confident that he or she can learn anything. And that happens via connecting online, it happens in person, but you are someone who goes to the trouble of explaining things in different ways, and therefore that confidence is reflected in their faces in terms of how they see you and your spaces in terms of where you learn. Isn't it cool when in a sea of unremarkable experiences, kids come to you and they know that they're going to get something interesting? Why? Because you are someone who goes to the trouble of crafting an interesting lesson, and that the things that you try are things that are part of like an ongoing exploration of what it means to see what new things might appeal to different students for different reasons, right? Isn't it cool when that one kid just starts paying attention? Pretty cool there, right? Isn't it cool when you have that sweet anticipation of something you're about to try and you know it's going to work? You know it is because you've been trying something, a little bit different, a little bit tweaked here and a little bit. You've been doing that because you're trying to reach the next student, and you know that kid is that close to like getting to that point where they're excited about what they're learning. And you have worked and worked and worked, and you've chipped away, and you've seen where that kid begins to spark, and you're ready. You know the one you're going to do today is going to help that kid really see a new possibility. Isn't that cool when that happens? And isn't it cool when you figure out that what makes you better as a teacher are the little things? Little things make us better. And that is a very important piece of how we think about the fun and cool of getting better, right? That improvement comes down to these little things we pick up along the way, the ideas, the tools, the resources, the techniques, the facial expressions that get us to a place where we're able to better help a kid see a possibility. Now, when we look at that from the standpoint of change, we say, all right, well, all of those things are cool in either environment. But there are certainly things that have changed since we had to close schools and start doing distance learning and things like that. And we should turn to some of those as well. So, for example, one of the big things that has changed is we've gotten much, much better at asking a very important question about our work. And that's specifically, what works? What works really? Because there are things that we have done for years and years and years, and they fit well within the lesson and they generate some questions and all. But the truth is that a lot of the kids, it's just a box they're checking off. That they're saying they're going through that particular worksheet to say, here, you're able to grade it, and there's a number in the grading column. But did it really help the kid learn something at a new level? And often the little things that we do may not, right? And so we have to stop and say, how are we using our time? One of the big issues from these last few months has been, hey, you're not going to teach as much as you did with in-person learning. We have to stop and ask the question, how much were we really teaching in terms of retention, right? But knowing that, zero in on the main things. And that gets us in a space where we ask, what is it that works really? That's good for us to be in that space. And it's a change that I hope we're excited about. But in terms of something like the images that I showed you, you might have looked at those images and said, oh, well, there was this, there was that, and then you heard my reason, and you might have thought I was about to ask, did you get it right? Did you guess the reason that I chose those images? And if you did, great. But you might have a problem with that because I didn't ask you for my reason for picking all of those images. I asked you for a common thread. And a common thread means that there is no right answer. And there is a huge difference between looking at a class and saying, what's the right answer and what's one way of looking at this. Now, this may seem like the kind of thing where we're taking the rigor out of the equation. Oh, kids need to learn the right answers. Of course they need to learn the right answers. But I'll tell you this, often we don't get the chance to explore that with students because they haven't really engaged in pursuing right answers. Often when you ask the question in a classroom, do you know the right answer? What happens is most of the students in the room will defer to the 3 or 4 students who always get the right answer. And that's not helping them see new possibilities for themselves. What that is validating the living daylights out of 3 or 4 kids while everybody else watches. And that's not our job. Our job is to inspire every last student to begin seeing possibilities. And if we're going to do that, we need to get them to respond, to engage in their learning. And that means asking questions the right way. Instead of the common thread that I chose, a common thread that you see, and suddenly they can begin looking at these things in different ways. There were no right answers. There were no wrong answers in the chat. There were only ideas. And if what we want is to be able to look inside our kids' heads as they begin to grapple with the things we put in front of them, we have to give them room to surprise us with some of their answers. Now, that's a little thing. Asking a question in such a way that there are no right answers is a little thing. And it's not like I'm suggesting like, hey, never ask this question. Do you know the right answer? That's not what I'm saying at all. However, the chances are fairly good that you ask that question far more often than you need. Because if it's a little thing to say, what is one way of looking at this? Talk to me about what you see. Or do you see a common thread? That's just a little thing, right? And if so, that little thing means you're that close to becoming a better teacher if you are inviting people into the process of exploring the things that we encounter in our courses in new and different ways. So in thinking about that, I ask you this. How do you go forward, right? How do you begin to do the little things on a day-to-day basis that make you a better and better and better teacher? How do you do that? And I would say that that kind of going forward is first and foremost a function of creativity. And creativity is the kind of thing that a lot of people think, oh, yes, creativity, everybody talks about that, but I'm just not a very creative person. Like the art teacher over there, very creative. Me, not so much. A lot of teachers think that way. And that is a fundamental misunderstanding of what creativity actually is. The best way I know to describe it is a quote from Maya Angelou, who put it this way, right? You can't use up creativity. The more you use, the more you have. It is an unlimited resource. It is within all of us. And you might say, well, I don't know, but the thing is that if you exercise that creative muscle, you find more and more and more possibilities. And that allows you to reach the next kid and the next kid and the next kid. You get better as a teacher by creatively exploring ways to reach the next kid. Now, in talking about this in the context of all the changes from the last few months, there are certainly things that kind of rise up and glare at us, right? And for one, just trying to stay sane in all of this has been quite tricky, right? I mean, the frustration associated with trying to switch from in-person teaching to online teaching for someone who never even considered what it means to teach online is is actually the kind of thing that can really kind of send you, you know, over the edge a bit, right? And so what you want is you really want to stop and say, well, how do we appreciate that difficulty? That difficulty that's a part of trying to teach in a new setting. If we're teaching people through online tools, what is it that allows us to kind of get better at doing that? Well, let's take a look at some of the things that are within us, right? I want to read you a portion of a post that was on Reddit in April. Really interesting post. I'm going to just read you a bit. This is going to be like one of the two times I'm going to read directly off the screen, but get ready for it. Here it comes. So I have two kids at home, a high-risk spouse who is an essential worker. I'm helping care for my 80-year-old grandparents, and I'm barely keeping my head above water with digital learning. Now, what comes to mind for you when you hear that? So if you would add to the chat right now, what's just something that just pops into your head when you see that particular quote? So this particular idea that gets tossed in there, and you think to yourself, what is it that stands out, to me when I look at that? And often, you really begin to see exactly the kind of thing that Jackie just put into the chat, right? Stress. That feeling of tension is like, oh my goodness, can I handle it all? The frustration that's a part of the different things we do in trying to adjust to a new environment. That's all very, very real, right? And we see this, and the chances are very good that you feel the desire to help as well. That anxiety is out there, like Jessica said it. Can we help that person? Is that teacher, is that somebody on my grade level? Is that somebody in my department? Is there a way I can help that person out? That's very, very real. We want to reach out. We want to be a colleague that allows a stressed teacher, on our team to stop and say, yes, I can do this. I can handle this, and we can find ways to help them with that. But if we're going to be those kinds of colleagues, the ones that allow our grade level and departmental colleagues to get better at what they do, we have to understand that going forward, there's some serious complexity to this. So you have to be ready for nuance that may not always have been there in, say, seeing something from one particular component, one particular side. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to read you the full post from that April piece, that April Reddit piece that I read the portion of a moment ago. And what I want you to think is, do I see this person the same way after I hear the entire post? So here it is. Dear overachieving teachers, stop it. You know those teachers, the one whose whole identity is teacher, the ones who can't relax at home, the ones lamenting seeing their students. These people seem to want to make everyone's life miserable right now by showing admin every extra cool social thing that they are doing during digital learning, and now admin thinks that everyone should do those things. Dear overachievers, stop it. I have two kids at home, a high-risk spouse who is an essential worker. I'm helping care for my 80-year-old grandparents, and I'm barely keeping my head above water with digital learning. If you want to overachieve, great, but quit making more work for the rest of us that are just trying to survive. You don't need to be super teacher right now, so back the F off. I'm so annoyed. Now, does that strike you differently? Is that a different kind of feel to that? Does that make you think differently about this person? There's something about looking at things this way that makes us often stop and say, oh, wait. Because if you are someone who, say, goes to the trouble of watching a recording that's available online, that somebody has put together to share ideas, you might think, I'm actually trying hard. I'm working hard to try to reach my kids, to try to get better at what I do. And I have some colleagues where every time we do something good, they think it reflects on them. They think that our doing something good means that it highlights their weaknesses. And you can see some of that in this post. And so the complexity of what it means to be a good colleague is one that requires understanding that there is some real nuance to how we work with these things. So if you look at this particular post on the screen, I want you to take a look at the two things I've circled right there, right? 84% upvoted. Now, 861 more upvotes than downvotes. What does that tell us? Well, kind of unclear, isn't it? We don't know, for example, if the person who upvotes this is essentially reacting to that portion that I read you initially, feeling, for the anxiety and the stress of the person who posted it, or do they actually agree that the idea that someone doing something really cool right now is purposefully making life miserable for everybody else? What is it? Well, it's hard to know. When you think about your colleagues, when you think about different kinds of ways of responding to the stresses that are a part of our job, you may well know some people who have approached what they do in this way. And that's actually a very, very different place to be. So, as we think about this, we have to understand that change and complexity is a really big part of how we begin to think about what it is that we do. Because it is absolutely natural, right? It's absolutely natural at a point when you're overwhelmed for someone to just respond to just with like, stop, all right? I need you to stop. I can't add anything more to what I do, just stop, right? That's actually a fairly natural move. Now, they wouldn't actually mean, please hold back from what you provide your students in your efforts to reach the next kid. In your efforts to reach every kid, please just don't do too good a job of it. That's not what they really mean. What they really mean is that they're dealing with fear. And fear is something very, very real. Matter of fact, I think of it in a particular condition, one that eats away at the very soul of those who suffer it. You might say, ooh, that sounds terrible. CIS. CIS, I've never heard of it. Well, what it is comparative inadequacy syndrome. You're like, oh, goodness, that sounds terrible. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Is it real? Well, I made it up, but it's real, right? Is that thing that we do, which is sort of like to look at something that another person is doing and say, oh, I can't teach as well as this person on my grade level. I can't teach as well as this other person in my department. I can't do as well as the person in the room next to me. I can't do this same kind of thing using one of these video chat tools that other teacher can. That's common. I can't. It is common. And yet, when we think about what it means to look at little things as the things that get us better, it is very important to know this, and this is probably the most important thing I can say the entire time. The only person to whom you ever need compare yourself is the you who you were yesterday. If you are focused on your work in that way, if it doesn't actually bother you how good someone, or like on your in your wing of your campus might be, or anything like it, just let that go, right? If they have ideas that can help you get better, awesome, that's great. What we really want is just to get a little bit better each and every day, where a little thing allows us to stop and go, oh yeah, that's an idea. I want to work with that. That leads to a far better personal and professional environment. But that's hard to do when you see improvement as people might look at clouds from the window of an airplane. If you are if you are in a plane, you are looking out a window and you're looking at clouds, they're big, they're beautiful, and out of reach. And that is something that for a lot of teachers is the reality of how they think about their work. So as you begin to look at your own work and you say, well, what is it? What is it that allows me to begin to tap into like those little things that make me better? The little things matter. And those little things are things like how you word what you do, what kind of questions you ask in class, whether you're willing to try something out, how you respond when something goes wrong, right? If you are in some kind of video chat session and something goes wrong and you turn to the camera and you say, well, that didn't work, but maybe we'll try it again some other time and just keep going, then you may have given the most important lesson to a given kid for the entire year. That kid may at home know that whenever somebody sees something go wrong, they know to like hide. They know to get out of the way because in their experience, adults freak out when things go wrong. And if you are the caring, stable adult in that child's life who essentially says, sometimes things go wrong, and you essentially show, you prove that you can be an adult and not freak out when things go wrong, you may have given a wildly important message to these particular students. So, what it means to reach out to our colleagues then. How do we do this in such a way that it actually works for us? Because it's hard when people are responding with, quit doing that, you're making me look bad, or whatever it is they're saying. If we keep in our heads that we have to be patient with them because they do have real stresses, right? They do have these worries about trying to translate strengths they may have had for decades into this new setting. And above all, if we remember, you see that their students matter too. Their kids also matter. And if we can be the kind of colleague that allows them to reach that student, then man, are we doing it right at that point. That's what's so important about our work. That chance to really see the complexity, to understand that little things will get us to where we need to be, that every single day can be a little bit better than the one before it, that we don't need to compare ourselves to others. All of those little things make a difference. And they especially make a difference when we're examining what it means to see changes, and changes happening constantly. We talk about the shift that has been there, right, from in-person learning to online learning, and what it means to kind of think, well, how do we go about this, right? What do we need to do? You might look at the fall and you say, oh my goodness, the fall is going to be frightening. At least last year, I had the chance to develop some rapport with these kids before we were all doing this stuff online. Yeah, but there are lots of things that can make it work. There are students who are doing better as a result of learning from home. I mean, granted, many of them are not, but there are some for whom a change from their social circumstances in the classroom dynamics of being with peers in a classroom has actually meant an ability to focus in ways that they haven't before. That's not a small thing. It may mean an ability to reach a kid you haven't reached before. The mere change of setting might mean that that's a possibility. Now, there are some basics, and there are basics that are always the case. We have to be organized about what we do, right? We have to know that things are changing constantly, right? And so here we are, we're quarantined. Oh, no, we're not. We can go back to school. We're going to do a hybrid thing. Whoop, no, we're quarantined again. This may be our reality in the coming year, where we're going to be in school for part of the time, and then we're online completely, and then we'll try it again, and then there's an outbreak in the county, and we have to come back. There are any number of ways this could pan out in the coming year. But something that has always been true is that many hands make light work. And if we are working with colleagues to find good ways to build content that'll be useful for kids, as we begin to think, okay, I'm organizing my curriculum online, things are available, to them to, go to these different web pages and find these things. I've got a space like, through Office 365 or whatever, you've kind of put these things together so that the kids can know this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I'm supposed to do. That within Teams, those documents are there. Whatever your system may be, what's important is that you make it easy for kids to know where to go to get the information they need. And sometimes that means creating little things that allow a student to hear an explanation, a little video, maybe a screencast or something like that, where what happens is the kid gets to watch it several times before they go, oh, I think I get it now. I mean, if we were supposed to memorize everything we heard the first time we heard it, we wouldn't be doing that well, would we? So if you create something that a kid can come back to and watch multiple times, all the easier. Oh, but it takes so much time to create things. Yeah, it takes time to do that, but the payoff can be tremendous, especially if you create something that your colleagues use and they create things that you use. Many hands make light work. And so that's a real piece of how this is. And a thing that never changes. If we can have a little fun doing what we do, that will make a difference as well. Now, this is another point at which people are like, oh, well, if you're going to be serious about, your work as an educator, fun's not in the big game. Yeah. The thing is that while it isn't our job to entertain kids, it is our job to inspire them. And, if what we're doing in the front of our classrooms or across the video chat is to show that we are excited about what we're teaching and that there is some real joy in the learning of these things, the kids will come along for the ride. Students are happy to come along for the ride given the opportunity to do so. So we do this by doing the things that we always have, right? We take care of the kids. We think about their learning in a variety of ways, looking for different ways that we can help them begin to see new things for themselves. And in order to do that now more than ever, we have to take care of ourselves. It may sound trite, but are you eating right? Are you eating the right things? Are you getting some sleep? Are you getting out for a walk? Are you getting away from the screen from time to time, right? These little things make a huge difference in your ability to reach the next kid, because you need to have yourself in a good place in order for you to be able to say the thing that matters at the time it's needed. That's the kind of creativity we were talking about a little earlier. The creative response to how students respond to what it is that you're saying, how they may like get upset about something. Can you say something that not only diffuses it, but allows them to see something in a new way? That's the important piece of what it is we're doing and how we think about this kind of work. So in thinking about this, one of the stories that comes to mind for me is a story about a tricycle, right? And this particular story comes from my friend Sue in Wisconsin. She is this wonderful educator. She's a grandmother, and she has a grandson who has cerebral palsy. Now, the thing to know about this condition, and you may already know this, is that the exercise you get as a child may go a long, long way to helping you become mobile as an adult. So exercise as a young person is really, really important for minimizing essentially the effects of this particular condition. And they were trying to get Sue's grandson to ride a tricycle because that's good exercise. It helps the little muscles in the legs, kind of work on these things. But he didn't want to do it. And it's not so mysterious why. It hurt, right? Hey, why don't you ride the tricycle? Don't want to, right? And if it hurts, it hurts. The kid's like, I don't want to do that. But one of this kid's teachers had the kind of creative response that can make a difference. And that teacher said, hey, let me try. And they were like, sure, give it a shot. And say, hey, I want you to ride that tricycle. I don't want to, it hurts. No. I don't want you to ride the tricycle for you. I want you to give Puppy a ride. And there's her grandson right there, giving Puppy a ride, getting the exercise that he needs. You can see the little brace on his ankle and his lower leg right there. And there he is making it happen. Why? Because one creative teacher was able to look at that situation and say, we can make it work. That's who we are at our very, very best. We are the people who allow kids to take something that maybe they don't want to do and see a possibility in it that they hadn't seen before. That's who we are at our best. And we get there through little things. A little bit better each day, a little bit better each day, a little bit better each day. And after a few weeks, you're a far better teacher than you were when you started. We talk about kids having a growth mindset all the time instead of a fixed mindset about their ability. I'm no good at math. I'm no good at writing. No. You can learn this. All of this is conceptually within your reach. It may be that someone needs to explain it differently, but you can get it. And we say these things to kids all the time. how many teachers have a totally fixed mindset about their ability to teach? Instead, if they are in a space where they're like, no, 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 I can get better every day, and little things get you there, sometimes it's the little suggestions that allow you to really see your own potential. So I share a lot of stuff. Every month I put out a newsletter. This is the one that I mentioned at the beginning of the recording. I'm going to give you the link again right now and at the end. And the link is to the sign up for my newsletter. And the reason I'm putting it up there is I'm going to give away a Starbucks card because I think it's kind of fun to give away a Starbucks card. You know, I mean, why not? I mean, in a world where it's sort of like there's a presentation, it includes a giveaway of a Starbucks card and one that does not. Why wouldn't you choose this one, right? So if you are not a member of my little newsletter and you're like, oh, I think I'll sign up, you know, feel free. You might get tired of it, you know, and if so, you can unsubscribe and no offense is taken. However, what we do is we share things every month that are free to watch, free to read, free to try, great tools that are out there. Word about different things that my little nonprofit does, you know, like these little video contests that allow kids to put clever videos together about ways to think about the things they're learning, or to tell about their communities, or to explore different career possibilities that are out there, or to just highlight service to others. We've got videos that kids have made about people and organizations in their community that make life better for others. And we do this contest. It's going on right now and will for the next few months. It's called Service Via Video. If you go to nextvista.org, you will find that on the front page. Scroll down a little bit, you'll find it. And we want you to think in terms of, you know, if I've got these kids, you know, who are going to be online learners for the next few months, why not help them create something that they will truly remember as a part of their learning, where they learn to reach out to organizations, say, hey, I'd like to make a little video about what you do. Can you share pictures that you have that would be okay to put in a video? They learn that kind of communication that's like at another level for seeing themselves as people who can contribute to the community now. We talk about like school often as if it isn't real. Well, when you get in the real world, but you know, I mean, school is the real world. It's a chance for us to really begin to see in ourselves possibilities. And that is what can lead us to living lives of fulfillment, right? So feel free to sign up for the newsletter. Somebody, I'm going to draw a name through random.org. Great little tool there, freebie, extra bonus, right? And I'll send word and let you know, and boom, you know, you'll be on your way to Starbucks for a hot chocolate or a chai tea or whatever brand of coffee there you like. So I hope you'll give that a look. There are other things that I do as well. I have a blog. It's called Inspiring Improvement. It's at rushtonh.com, rushtonh.com. And you know, do you post there regularly? I wouldn't say regularly, but I do write. So feel free to give that a look. And if you have any questions about it, just let me know. I've written several books as well. Matter of fact, the first one you see on the screen here, Making Your Teaching Something Special, is an exploration of some of these ideas that I've presented as a part of this session, so that you can say, oh, okay, open up to any of the 50 chapters in there. They're only 2 to 3 pages each, and read it and think, hey, you know, that's something I'll try. I'll try it with my class tomorrow. The idea is that little things get you better. And so if you look at a book as something that can allow you to say, oh, maybe I'll give this a shot, feel free. And if you want to look at it with some colleagues and do a little book study together, and you want me to connect with you via video chat and talk to you about it and just encourage you, I'm happy to do it. So feel free to give those a look. I'm happy to answer questions about those things as well. Speaking of questions, you may have some questions about the session I've just presented. What I am about to do is to finish up the recording, and then once that I have done that, I'll open it up to anybody who is taking part in this session right now, and we'll just kind of explore these questions as we go. But as you look at this last information, let me just kind of identify some specific things. First, there's my email address. I answer every email I get eventually. Under that is the video library, nextvista.org, N-E-X-T, Vista, V-I-S-T-A.org. I'm on Twitter at RushtonH, and so if you like the kinds of things I post there, feel free. Under that is the resources. I've got loads and loads of resources I've been collecting over years that are free, you know, just things you might want to take a look at, including a big page of inspirational video, dozens and dozens and dozens of videos that when you are kind of exhausted about your work, I just need to see something that kind of lifts my spirits. That's where you can find it. nextvista.org/resources, right? Under that's the 5-day challenge. You're like, wait, what is that? Is that a cleanse? No. What this is 5 different posts that each one has a couple of different things that you might try, and you can do that with a colleague and talk about the different things you do with it. 5 days, you'll get a lot better as a teacher by just trying those different things. Totally free. All of this stuff is. There's the newsletter link again, nextvista.org/newsletter. And if you have any questions for me, just shoot me a note. nextvista.org/contact-us is one way to get there. You can also send me an email, just whatever floats your boat is fine. As for the newsletter, I end the newsletter the same way every month, and I will finish this session with that same thought now, and that is this. May you inspire and be inspired each and every day. Thanks so much for taking in the session.